And I remember thinking, this place is loud, but this was playoff Kansas City. And I have never seen anything like it. I talked about it in the open, just chills thinking about that. I will never forget that stadium last night. And Josh Allen damn near brought the place down.
Yeah.
I mean, so really impressive. And when you're walking out of the game, somebody asked me last night, well, if you're Buffalo, what do you do now? You do nothing. You do whatever you were going to do anyways. This loss instructs only that it just so happens you're in the AFC and you've got to deal with Burrow, Mahomes, Herbert the next 10 to 15 years. And I think if you're Roger Goodell, talk about a best plane ride, wherever he was flying last night, he's thinking,
laughing.
I can take a deep breath because these guys are going to be throwing the ball around the yard the next 10 to 15 years. And so if you're Buffalo, I think you feel even better about that quarterback than you did when you woke up yesterday.
No doubt.
Yeah, I mean, it was unbelievable. He threw the ball 58 yards on one little baby crow hop. His foot hit I think it was like the 20, and he climbed like a yard. And next thing you know, Davis catches the ball on the opposing 22-yard line.
But, Chris, that's just the biggest part of the game. They're down 9. They absolutely need a score. Like, they can't – the crowd's going crazy. It's the biggest lead of the game. You absolutely have to have an answer there, and he does it in one play. And I don't know how he does it because the safety is straight backpedaling as soon as the snap goes. Yeah. And to me, one of the other guys that – I mean, obviously with his record-setting performance, but Gabriel Davis, I didn't know he was that fast. Like, when he ran that post route, then he runs the Dino route. Like, those things are happening so fast. And to be able to catch those balls from Allen, who puts a lot on him, it's just incredible.
I mean, he broke a guy's legs, it was unbelievable. He was a big piece for them last year. Now he's kind of, this is one of those games that unfortunately for him, nobody's going to remember it as the Gabriel Davis game, but this was the Gabriel Davis game. I mean, he outshined Cooper Kupp. If you'd have told me there was going to be a receiver not named Stephon Diggs or Tyreek Hill that was going to go for more than Cooper Kupp did earlier in the day, I would have said you were crazy. And he really stepped up. And you mentioned this about Josh Allen. It's not just the throws, man. I mean, I was up in that suite, yelling, hey, 3rd and 3, who do you think has the fucking ball for Buffalo? I mean, he's everything for them, whether it's 4th and 4, whether it's 3rd and 3, he's going to be the guy keeping the ball. You almost have to overplay that. And I ran into my old D-line coach, Brendan Daly, who's now with Kansas City after the game. I said to him, I know you were yelling at people today, but like, you couldn't have meant it. Like, there's no way if I was playing for you right now and Josh Allen, bails out of the back of the end zone or out of the back of the pocket with the ball out there like a loaf of bread and then rolls right and throws a piss missile to Davis for 15 yards. Like, that's not my fault.
Yeah.
There's no coachable answer to keeping him caged in the pocket a lot of times.
I just also think, Chris, and I don't know if it gets talked about enough. I sure look at it when I'm watching the game. I know you're watching it too, and you're down in a stance looking at the quarterback. But how good these guys are pre-snap.
Yeah.
Like Josh Allen, I mean, I don't think it gets it's one thing that doesn't talk about, like, to see what they're doing to Diggs, right? And he ended up only getting 7 targets. I think it was 3 catches for 7 yards. And then just to be able to say, all right, they're going to do it again. Gabriel's my guy, and I'm going to feed him, and I'm going to feed him, and I'm going to feed him. And it was just incredible. And Mahomes, too. I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about the 13-second drive, but it goes back to how the 49ers defended the Cowboys at the end of last week. And that's a really, really crazy dynamic because I understand people don't expect athletes to make mistakes, but people make mistakes in crunch time. That's what happens. It happens all the time. So, but Mahomes, knowing what he has to do, knowing the clock is totally against him, and to be able to get the ball out that quick and know what they're doing, I still go back and look at the alignment on the corner. Buffalo on the Kelsey play, I do think he's so wide, and that's why that throwing lane is so wide open and easy. But they still did it. I had a problem with that, and I don't know what my problem is, but I feel like if you give Kelsey the ball, like, you almost have to play the sticks, like it's 3rd and 6 with a 4th and 6 with the game on the line, because I mean, I'm worried about getting beat deep, but
I'm more worried about the fact that Kelsey's going to catch the ball with a full head
running
of
start.
steam
Yeah.
At the 30, whatever it is. Like, I got to go back and look, but essentially where he catches the ball is unimportant. He's going to run for 3 to 5 more yards. And so I would have challenged him more. There were a couple things Buffalo did at the end of the game, before the half and at the end of the game, not squibbing. I mean, like, that's something that people picked up on. This game is completely, that game probably is theirs if they kick that ball. I mean, I was praying they didn't. As soon as they put the ball in the air, I said, let that go. You obviously have the Kelsey issue that I just talked about. So I thought there were a couple game management issues at the end of the game for them. But you're right. Like, we're talking about Buffalo. We're talking about Josh Allen. We should be talking about Mahomes.
Yeah.
The guy there's been, everybody's had a flavor of the month this year, different quarterbacks and with good reason. There's a lot of exciting new names on the scene. People really wrote this team off. I damn near wrote this team off, and my brother was on the team, but it's incredible, kind of the competitive spirit he has and the mental edge that he has that you alluded to 13 seconds ago. I guarantee he didn't flinch. It's just the type of leadership where you look at Mahomes. It's kind of like looking at the flight attendant on a turbulent flight. Like, that's who's going to tell you if we're fucked. Look at Mahomes. He's never going to look like he's rattled. And 2 completions right down the field and bang, we go to overtime. And the worst part about not challenging Kelsey is you never see the ball again.
Mm-hmm.
You never see the ball again. So, there were times where Andy Reid got too cute. I didn't like 81 under center on 4th and short in the red zone. But I thought they called a brilliant game. And just the little things like the window to throw that ball into Tyreek Hill, that pocket's kind of closing in on him. He finds little avenues to get the ball out that you go back and replay and say, like, his arm angle is just as impressive as Josh Allen throwing a piss missile from one hash to the next, 15 yards down the field. I mean, they do things differently a little bit, but they're both otherworldly. So
the touchdown to Tyreek Hill, I thought, was really the one that put Buffalo's defense really in a tough spot, because you come out, you get the lead, and then they run the cover 2-man, and then Tyreek is so fast, he beats the guy with outside leverage. But that in route against a cover 2-man where everybody's running vertical, everybody's got their backs to him. So he puts the ball in a place where Tyreek doesn't miss a step. He stays full speed. And then for him to get that crease, if you're even, you're leaving, they say it. And guys have, Poyer and Hyde have bad angles because of where they are.
Those angles got bad quick, didn't they?
Exactly, because of his speed and where the ball was put.
Yeah.
So again, to execute in that situation, and then Buffalo comes back and scores in 4 plays. So now your defense is still winded because they're all chasing Tyreek. They come out at 13 seconds. It's still that situation. Yeah, you practice it, but you still got to, time. You're just looking at the clock. Sure enough, Kansas City gets, enough yards on the first play. And then the second play, they're going to run vertical, but then they get the field goal. Now you come out in overtime. Now you got to line up for a whole drive. Yeah. Like, I just thought they were backpedaling the whole time. And it's, on the road, you mentioned the frenzy of the stadium. It's just a real tough dynamic for a defense to play and knowing what you're up against. And that's ended up being what was the problem.
And I got to say this, man. And like the first drive, he took it into his own hands with his legs. I mean, that was as big a moment as the last drive, because this was a game you didn't want to end up playing, chase with Buffalo, like not a fun game. And if you're Buffalo, one more thing before we close it out, I think, again, I said this earlier, like, what do you do? Obviously, you do what you were going to do in the offseason. You might have to replace coordinators. This was another Dable kind of masterpiece going into this coaching cycle. But you've come a long way in a year where I can remember last year that offense having to go for it on 4th down or talk about going for it on 4th down routinely in the first half of that Kansas City game because you were playing keep up. And now Kansas City kind of felt like the elephant in the room was, we got to play keep up with Buffalo. So they've come a long way in a year. They're in this thing year after year. I don't think anybody needs to panic. That was just a great game. And honestly, Steve, I have never liked going to NFL games until last night. I mean, it really was damn cool. Also, because you can see the whole field. And in a game like that with the passing attack, like at home, I just saw so much more. It was incredible on the back end. So amazing. And then I get to go home and watch the highlights, and I get to hear the calls. You hear the crowd noise. You hear the shock in the stadium after the late Buffalo scores. You hear the mic picking up "great motherfucker," one of the best motherfuckers on that Gabriel touchdown in the red zone. I mean, there's nothing like a quiet stadium on the road, and that place was amazing. What a battle. So, and the coolest part was watching with my dad, Steve, where the last 2 minutes, I was thinking to myself, first off, he's walking into a stadium that he was like hated in. Yeah. So it's a lot of fun, and it's kind of surreal to see like Kansas City fans like patting him on the shoulder and, "Hey, Howie, we hated you when you played and we love you now." But then watching him kind of staring down on the field the last 2 minutes, where I feel like we were pointing at our watches every 5 seconds. It's too much time. There's too much time, a lot of time. When he played in 1986, can you imagine, like seeing 3 scores in the final 2 minutes? Just watching that game in that stadium, watching that style of football, it was probably a surreal experience for my pops too, and a lot of fun. So
one thing you mentioned, it was a hostile environment. Now, when I think of hostile environment, I think of the NFC Championship game, Case Keenum coming into town against you guys, and Meek Mill. Like, Philly is hostile. I would imagine Kansas City's not as hostile. It's not as many cuss words, right?
No, there's people saying fuck, I think. I mean, all right. Listen, my favorite thing about that stadium is if you kind of zone out and like just squint a little bit into the mass of people, it looks like 1997. It is incredibly retro. Everybody has their best 90. I like vintage Kansas City jackets. I don't know how there are so many of them, but everybody has, an old jacket from the Joe
Derek
Montana
Thomas
year.
Days. Yeah.
Derek Thomas days, like back in the day. And I feel like it's just been a thing that they really do. There are no posers in that stadium. There's a sea of automobiles outside. Like when you pull in, it is really mind blowing to see the amount of cars that are there 3 hours early.
There's no parking garage, right? It's just
there's no parking garage. Like people were out there partying. They have great gear. It feels like 1997. It's a retro stadium. It was a really special experience for, even a retired player, because I totally get the fan experience in some moments. And this was one of them where I was just like, hey, I fucking totally get it. Chiefs fans, you got it made. I hope they never bulldoze that place. Somebody should ask Roger Goodell at the podium at the Super Bowl, put him on the spot. Do you commit to Arrowhead being around for another 100 years? Because that place should never go away. I love it.
I'm totally with you. And it's one of those places it does come across on TV, and that's when it's special. I do think this puts Kansas City right to the Super Bowl championship, Chris. I really do.
I think LA, Kansas City will be a fun game.
Okay.
I think LA, Kansas City will be a fun game.
A lot of yellow.
You're right. A lot of yellow, but it's better than Kansas City, San Francisco, which is too much red. Too much red. The indoor 2 red teams. It's might as well be the SEC championship. I don't need to see it. I'd rather see the SEC championship. Hey, by the way, do this: 300 yards, 70% completion rate, and 50 rushing yards. Somebody tweeted last night that's happened 4 times in the postseason when it comes to quarterbacks. 2 last night, Mahomes and Josh Allen. Can you guess the other 2? I haven't looked it up. Me and my pop said Cam Newton definitely won.
Kurt Warner?
I was going to say Steve Young, maybe like in 1994 when they were playing the Chargers. I feel like he had to have.
Yeah.
Cowboy, get us the other 2 at some
Bill
point.
Sims,
you don't have
Super
to rush.
Bowl Bill Sims against the Broncos Super Bowl was, I believe, the best completion percentage before Steve Young against the Chargers. I believe Sims went 22 or 25, and I think Steve Young topped that because he had more completions and more attempts. Just one more thing, Chris. I'm sorry, on Buffalo.
This game deserves its own podcast. We don't care.
When you really dive back into, because the whole day I wake up Sunday, I'm like, holy shit, man! If Buffalo wins, they get an AFC title game at home to go to the Super Bowl.
Yes,
and like that's like you definitely think about that possibility. Yeah. And then I saw a thing today: the Jags 3 wins. One kept the Dolphins out of the playoffs. One kept the Colts out of the playoffs, and the other made Buffalo play on the road last night.
How about the team that just that did a Big 12 game? Actually lost a 9-6 ball game against Jacksonville, and that's the reason that this game didn't happen in Buffalo. I mean, it's such a shame. It's a Greek tragedy in a lot of ways, but you know what? The biggest Greek tragedy was the Bills fan that went viral with the sign that said he missed his mother's funeral to go to that game. But you know what? Considering how she raised him, I don't think I think that worked out perfectly. I think that
I can see that
it's in their DNA to grieve. Mm-hmm. And this was the perfect occasion for this guy. And I'm only joking about it because he made the sign. He's self-deprecating. That is fucked up, dude, for you to do that. And I saw a viral video the viral videos of Bills fans are starting to come in. The reactions, they're just tremendous. I mean, guy went from standing on chairs, calling people motherfuckers, imaginarily ringing the hell's bells, to laying motionless on the floor. There was a whole lot of that last night. So sorry to Bills Mafia, but you'll be back. You kind of have a jugs machine that runs 20 miles an hour on your team. You make a Pro Bowl at tight end.
So 300 yards passing, 50 yards rushing, 70% completion rate. 4 quarterbacks have done it. Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes last night. Josh Allen against the Patriots in the wild card round, and Josh Allen in the wild card round in 2020 against the Colts.
Wow!
So Josh Allen, 3 out of those 4.
Wow,
he's unbelievable.
I forgot the rushing part was part of that. Sorry. I should not have. I would definitely not brought up Phil Simms' name.
I was going to say Phil Simms was rolling, dude.